I'm here to talk about drinking at work. I know. In much of the US, the idea of drinking at work is the equivalent of needing to find a new job. And in software, things are often a little more relaxed and quite often challenge the common Puritan norms that still reside in much of the US workforce. But in reality, drinking, or worse, is very common in software development, and it's not always a bad thing. My name's Mark. I've been doing software development professionally since 2003 and writing code since early 90s. So in my 15 years, I've had a lot of jobs and a lot of contracts, and it's my personal estimate that more than half had some type of on-the-job drinking, or worse, tolerated. And on one extreme, I remember having to do shots at 9 a.m. of some 100-proof tequila to get the dev team to disclose where they hid my keys. And even further down that path of extreme, I remember getting let go from a position shortly after informing my boss that his frequent pot smoking was getting in the way of me being able to do my job. Not fun. On the other side of the spectrum are actively dry workplaces, and they're fine. Not quite as much fun most of the time, but they're fine. And I've worked in many of these companies, and may again, and it is what it is. But it's my take that management's poor opinion of a celebratory beer after a hard launch hampered team cohesion. And there was more of a culture of cubicalism. And I personally felt like I saw more unnecessary HR intervention on other people for what I would consider a tolerable discrepancies. There's a few shops I worked where there was a strict and harsh tone from management on drinking, and really just dampened fun in general. And it caused those HR problems. There's tattletaling, there's various scorekeeping by employees on other employees, and substance abuse came back around later because of free time decompression needs. You know, you get out of work and boy, I need a drink after getting out of that place. And that's sad and common, and I don't want to work at places where that happens. In fact, one position had a near zero tolerance of drinking. And I asked a fellow developer, like, hey, you guys ever have a drink after a launch or something? And like, no, you don't want to see a beer in here. That would not go over well. And at the same time, management did all sorts of shady stuff with data storage. So shady that it was actually illegal for the regulated industry that they worked in from an architecture point of view. And that controlling environment of authoritative ideologies tended to disrespect the knowledge of the employees. So I know if I was in there at the incarnation, I would have said, you don't want to do your data like that. It's a problem because of XYZ. But management knows best, and management knows you shouldn't drink at work. So whatever odd thing management might think about how we store data, that goes, and just throw away probably, oh boy, at that shop there was about 45 collective years of developer experience that was just being ignored. So it's a complex situation, and every place is a little bit different, and obviously I'm going towards some of the extremes. So let's go into the middle. Let's go where this is okay. And in the middle is a typical startup where whiskey's on the desk and the dev team has their own personal bar, and honestly, there's usually a keg in the office, and this is normal. Things get done. There's balance, tolerance, adult behavior, and it's a place you want to be. It creates good memories, and I do have those good memories of standing out in Midtown Manhattan on the back porch with my glass of whiskey at 4 p.m. on a Thursday, just needing to check out a while and having a sip and enjoying how awesome life was at that moment. And it was. But there's also a concern for people who may be recovering from alcoholism. And this can be an alienating experience, but there's no real way to fix this. Drinking happens everywhere. Can these people not go to a football game because there's just too many Coors Lights getting passed around? Or should maybe there just be a couple non-alcoholic drinks available out of respect for those people? You know, it's not completely unsolvable, and a good manager and a good team should be able to keep that scene cool and respect everybody. And I just don't think that's unreasonable at all. Of course, drinking can go too far and become a real problem, and I'm not really a big drinker. And I've even had to send people home for being drunk in the job and endangering others, and it's not fun. So on that note, I don't want a bus mechanic, pilot, or doctor to be drunk, and being drunk at work is not the point. The point is creating an environment where people feel comfortable, and being part of a group is the goal. You're creating a family, and drinking is a social lubricant, be it for your Christmas and Thanksgiving experience with your family or after a hard launch with your work family. So with drinking being a serious problem around the world, it ruins lives all too frequently. And I get that. It can be a wet blanket, but people who want to drink will find a way. And people who have problems hopefully are going to get those addressed. Now, I have to admit that companies where drinking was tolerated in one fashion or another were more fun, and we got more shit done, in my opinion, and the team was closer and cooperated better. And a lot of team building can come from those early Friday pouring of suds or a round of firewater, and everybody is an adult, and management knows how to control things. It's just going to be fine. So on the topic of drinking at work, as a software developer, I don't care. As long as shit gets done, people act as adults, and management can chill enough to let people be people, this is great. And this is a sort of place that builds a community and builds a culture and builds a family. And my overall experience has been pretty positive. Granted, I've seen some bad things happen, and there are extremes, as I opened up this conversation with, but I enjoy catching a 5 p.m. drink with coworkers, especially the big companies. That's where it was really cool, because the various ranks and departments all came together in the same room and poured a drink and learned about each other. And when you have, developers talking to salespeople, talking to directors, it was really cool. Like, there's all these questions you always wanted to ask. You can ask them now, and you have a little bit of social experience. And I always love keeping a fine bottle of scotch for a hard deploy. And I know that the dev teams that I managed, it meant a lot when I poured glasses of my expensive scotch, my prize scotch for them, and we all had that sip. It did mean a lot, and it really did help build a team. And I felt a lot closer to those people. So when you're in a co-working space, this stuff's always present. And this cross-team and cross-company socializing makes it even better, because now you're meeting more new people in more fields. Just super fun, super fun. So the idea of creating culture is important. And, for management to look the other way at reasonable celebrations, I suggest that. And if you don't want to participate, I respect that. But if you can, even if you just don't want to drink and just want to hang out, do it. Like, these are your people. Get to know them. And this is your opportunity. And in some European countries, drink at lunch is tolerated. And back here in the U.S., you come back with a little whiskey on your breath. Again, you might be getting your walking papers. So with all things being equal, I do tend to shy away from HR-driven companies where there's a cubicle lifestyle and it feels like it's not going to be fun, or the people aren't having that early 5 p.m. drink. And I will opt or wait for the slightly more chaotic dev pit co-working style of experience. And even as I move on in age, I still like hanging with the young kids. And sometimes I feel like I'm the youngest, even though I might have a decade or more. But I like that. And those are the teams I want to work with. But I've also been known to seek out the grit. So I hope you enjoyed my talk. My name is Mark. If you have any comments or questions, give them to me. There's a lot of experience I want to share. And I feel like I've been around the globe a couple times on this software dev thing. And that's what we're talking about here today. So I'll see you next time.